There is nothing wrong with your internet. Do not attempt to adjust your settings. We are controlling the podcast. We control the squealing and the screams. We can make your heart flutter, your eyes blur from tears, or sharpen your mind to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit back. We are in control of what you hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your settings. You are about to experience the awe and mystery known as the female mind. You are now entering the Fangirl Zone.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Fangirl Zone. I am Sean Fangirl S. Today we are talking American Gods episode 4, Get Gone. And today joining me is Miss Jennifer. Welcome back.
Hi guys.
And we're talking about a story of a girl who possibly screwed a guy and saved the whole world. So, you know. I know that's a real bad take on that song, but... Alright, so this episode, let me give you the little tiny summary that we get, which I think is hilarious. We get like a sentence and a half. The story of Laura's life and death is explored, including her first encounter with Shadow and how exactly she came to be sitting on the edge of his motel room.
Yes. So, I read the book,
Yes.
and we don't get this particular episode at all. It's tiny bits and pieces from the book. And I was reading an article that Vanity Fair did, an interview with Neil Gaiman. Mm-hmm. And he said, you know, out of all the episodes, this one is 99% completely made up by the showrunners. And it also happens to be his favorite episode. And he said that he feels like he is an audience member watching a story in a world that he created. And he thought that was a really cool experience and absolutely loved this episode that kind of explores Laura and gives the character a lot more depth. So from an author's standpoint, I mean, that's a pretty good review.
I think so too, yeah. And it was funny because last episode I was talking with Gomez and I'm like, I'd like a little more backstory to find out how we got to here. But I was actually talking about Shadow a little more, but this plays into it.
Well, Laura is one of those characters where she is not a good person. And we come to know that about her from the very beginning. I mean, she died with his best friend's dick in her mouth right before she gets out of prison.
Awkward.
So, what I liked about this episode is it does give us that deeper look into her, where she's a more fully developed character. And what I like most about this episode is it develops the character of Laura without redeeming her. And I think a lot of people can relate to it. Laura's not a good person, but that's okay. A lot of us do things that we're not proud of, and you know, some of us, you know, have had less than good person moments in our lives. And I think it just goes to show how our world is not all black or white or good or bad, but we're shades of gray. So it shows her as a flawed character, but also relatable, and you kind of figure out, okay, well, if I were in that situation where my husband went to prison and it was all my fault, how would I react? Would I be, you know, in the same place, or, you know, would I rise above it like I think I'd like that I would? Yeah, but you never know until you're put into that situation, and I think we've all had those I fucked up moments in life, and hers happened the last 4 years while Shadow was in prison. So,
now,
not defending her or anything, but I mean, I think it adds a lot to her character.
Now I have a question for you though, specifically about Laura. Like the way she was kind of developed, she seemed very emotionless almost through the entire thing. Even when she's smiling, like her eyes are dead. Now, do you think, and I know this gets thrown around a lot, that she could have been possibly on the autism spectrum, or do you think that it's more just depression?
I think, I mean, she definitely could be on the spectrum, but I think her character represents something that a lot of people, especially younger people in this world or this country faces, and that's kind of like you're on autopilot and you feel like you're waiting for your life to begin. And when she meets Shadow, she's like, oh, maybe this is it. And then 4 years later, she finds herself very bored again. And it's almost, I always say this about the reason we love zombie genre films and TV shows is because we're basically a society of zombies where we get up to this monotonous routine, we get ready, we get dressed, we go to work, we do this job that's kind of mind-numbing, we browse social media, and it's just everything's kind of like automated and automatic. And sometimes people get into that rhythm and the monotony so much that they need something to wake themselves up. Like we see her in the hot tub spraying the bug spray. And it's like, well, is she just doing this for kicks or does she want to die?
Right. Like, at first I'm like, what, is she trying to get high? Then I'm like, I don't think that's what it was.
Yeah, and I think she's more bored, and it seems like she's controlled by that boredom and monotony in her life. And even after she meets Shadow and, they seem to have a pretty good life, I mean, she's still at that same job at the casino. She doesn't even get to shuffle her own cards. And, he shook her up for a little while, but now she wants something more in life. And so she comes up with this plan, for Shadow to do what he originally was going to do when they met, which is rob the casino. And she's like, I've been there for 8 years. It's the same damn thing every day. They never deviate from the plan. And the one day that he goes to execute this it cannot go wrong plan, someone deviates from the monotony and just screws them all both. So, her life got shook up, but not in the ways I think that she would like it to have gotten shaken up. So
now one more question for you, because again, you already stated the beginning scene we see Shadow come in, and it turns out it was X amount of years ago when he first meets Laura, and he is doing things that a really good surveillance agent would have picked up. It's not just capping your bet. It was just totally changing it. It's like, hello, you can see the color so they would know that you went from $10 in chips to $50 in chips.
Yeah.
Sorry. If you'd have capped it, maybe you could have been okay, because I actually caught somebody capping a bet though. But it's just like, I see that and I'm like thinking, this is the reality that a lot of casino dealers have to deal with, I'll tell you.
Yes.
But like, she seemed like, I'm bored. Okay, I'm happy. I'm bored again. And I'm thinking that whatever deviated, since like you said, she said it was, wow, that just sounded weird. That would have been horrible if I was writing that out in a book. But Laura stated that nobody changes anything. But later on in the episode too, we see the two birds again, which we've discussed. So do you think the whole thing actually went down by Mr. Wednesday? He was the one who put it into motion because he wanted Shadow.
I think that is a strong possibility, because we see Shadow in the beginning, and he's kind of this happy-go-lucky, very charming character, and he's a very different Shadow then than we know now, where Shadow is, he doesn't believe it unless he can see it with his own eyes. And, he just isn't happy-go-lucky. He has the weight of the world on his shoulders, almost quite literally, as he travels around with Mr. Wednesday. And, he's trying to adjust this, okay, I see it, but I still don't quite believe it reality that Mr. Wednesday presents to him. And it makes you kind of wonder, why Shadow? And it does almost seem like there was a predestined fate for him, whether that was created by Mr. Wednesday or other, powers that be somewhere out there, or if it's just chance. And one thing I think that maybe it could be chance is Shadow's love of coin tricks. And when you toss a coin, yeah, there are statistics and things like that. It'll land on heads or tails, whatever. But, I mean, you're really kind of by chance. And, of course, but we do see Mr. Wednesday can even change chance, and he can change that coin flip. So I think it would be really cool if we learned that Mr. Wednesday kind of set all of this in motion. And I think it would be a big point in the story where if Shadow finally does fully trust Mr. Wednesday, is fully on board with what he's doing, and, starts, really investing and believing in the new world that he's found himself in. If he were to find out that the whole reason all this happened, that he went to prison, that his wife is, dead and having to sew her arms back on, chasing after him, and everything that has happened was by design of Mr. Wednesday, I think that would be a really big, moment in the series where he has to decide, am I still with this guy or not?
That makes sense. It's kind of worrisome, if that's what's going to happen. So yeah, I guess we got to hold on for that.
I really like Mr. Wednesday, and so no matter what he does, if he did do this, I'll be like, well, to be fair, he probably had to do it, because I just love the character, and I love the actor who plays him as well so much. He has this, faded charm about him that I just find irresistible. He's magic on screen.
I agree with you. We essentially don't see any gods until the last 15 minutes of the episode, so we'll talk about them towards the end of our show. So this episode really revolved around, like you said, Shadow and Laura. It's Laura's story, but we also get Audrey and Robbie. And we show how they're friends. And in the book, I know Gomez was saying that Audrey and Robbie introduced Shadow to Laura, whereas we're seeing it differently.
Right, yeah. In the book, she is a small-town travel agent, but travel agents don't really exist anymore, so.
That's true. And let me tell you, the dead eyes working at the casino is totally true. So I've worked at casinos for 10 years.
Well, you're stuck playing the same game for your entire shift.
And it's funny because when they put the auto shuffler on her game and she's like, but I want a hand shuffle. They're like, no, this is better. I will tell you, and I tweeted this out, that dealers hate the auto shuffle because they don't get that break.
Yeah, because you kind of need that mental break, where you're just doing something.
Well, it's a physical break, too, because you think about it, because, the way you're flipping the cards, everything. And when I tweeted that out, I think the writer's room, liked it and retweeted it. Cause
awesome.
It's the reality of working as a dealer. I'm sorry. I mean, you're lucky if you're one of the other games that isn't on a shuffle machine or isn't a fast-paced one like blackjack. But Laura wasn't that lucky. And it was interesting, too. I just want to say it was an Egyptian-themed, not the Lexus, but I'm sorry, that's not even the right name. That's the car. Yeah, not the Luxor, but it was an Egyptian-themed one. Because right in front of her table was Anubis and Horus, I think.
Yes.
Which I thought was interesting.
Yes, and they've got the big pyramid in there, and even her vest that she wears has pyramid, and her bow tie has the eyes of Ra. On it.
I thought that was just really interesting because it's like they're going to weave the little story through without actually saying it.
Yeah, I kept waiting. I'm like, okay, when are we going to see Anubis?
Right, yeah, I figured he was going to all of a sudden be at the table or something. But this was just really interesting. They go, they have a life, they get married. And even on her wedding day, though. I mean, Laura
she looks
so
very bored.
She's like, that was fun.
Yeah,
wow.
Okay. It's almost like, she's sitting there, she's posing for the picture, and then she looks down at her flowers, chucks them, and okay, what's next?
Yeah. It was very strange to me. I mean, I don't know. You're usually a little bit excited, even if it's more nervous. But, yeah, she's just like, yeah, we did this. Okay, whatever.
She reminds me of, what was that? Prozac Nation. And it's a movie years ago. I think it had Christina Ricci in it or something. But I mean, at the time when that movie was done, I lived close to the University of Tennessee, and there was one pharmacy that was the number one prescription provider or prescription filler of Prozac. And it was basically all these bored housewives, with numbing lives and monotony and things like that. And this. When I was looking at her wedding, I'm like, oh, Prozac Nation. Okay. Where, there are no highs and lows, that just is.
Yeah, that's what I felt like her whole life was. And it's kind of building, but not in a good way, because you have Audrey and Robbie who are there, and they're at a barbecue together, and Audrey's like, oh, man, Robbie's never looked at me the way Shadow looks at you. And
I would kill for someone to look at me like that.
Right, and still, Laura, smiles, but it doesn't meet her eyes. It doesn't reach, and you can just see this, and you see it getting less and less.
And Shadow is completely content, and he's happy, and his life with Laura is enough for him, and for her, it's just almost. And even when they have sex the first time, and I got to say, this show is reinventing the gold standard for how sex scenes are being shot in a lot of ways, and I've heard that it's really creative angles to make it look as realistic as it is.
Yeah, because that looks pretty realistic.
Oh yeah, but she's laying there, and he's like, "What?" And she just smacks him, and he's like, "Okay," and she smacks him again. So she even has to, have some kind of violence, when she has sex with this insanely hot guy to kind of, amp the, the excitement up for her. But
even like you were saying, the sex, because later she's just having sex and looks bored. It's wow.
And even with Robbie, I mean, she's just going through the motions, and then she does this incredibly risky thing which is, one last time, before Shadow comes back, let's make things interesting. And that's what ends up getting her killed is her thirst for, let's spice things up a little bit.
But in that scene is where we see the birds all of a sudden flying.
Yes.
And that's why I was wondering, because you kind of see what's happening, but you don't. You know it's a car accident. Mm-hmm. But it's just like, what is happening? What's going on? And even though we see it, it's kind of like, I can't believe I'm seeing this.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I don't know if that makes sense, because you knew it's coming. You knew that from episode 1. Yeah. But the fact that you suddenly see the birds, which are very, very much associated with Odin, who is Mr. Wednesday, or at least we're taking the leap and saying it is.
Yes, I think you're on the right track there.
So I don't want him to be involved, but at the same time, we see after Laura dies, when she does see Shadow, he is glowing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she says that Shadow is her sunshine, I believe is what she tells her friend. And literally, he is her sunshine because he gives off this golden glow that she can see from miles away to kind of track him down. And I have to say, I loved the part where she meets her friend in the bathroom, and she's like, and she's sitting on the toilet, and her friend's like, oh my God. And she's like, it's no big deal. I just, gotta sew my arms back on, and, formaldehyde. It's a pain in the ass, but what are you gonna do? I mean, even being dead does not really shake Laura.
Which is funny, and I don't know, I will talk to Gomez next episode, because you guys switch off. He had said that Laura shows up to Shadow in the book, and that's when he's like, I gotta get out of Dodge, because she's in town. What is this? This is weird, she's dead. But, like, she shows up, and she's, like, hiding from him, though, because she was at the house to get her clothes after she digs her way out of the dirt, which, let me backtrack that a little bit, because she does get to see Anubis, and I don't understand why it's Anubis. I mean, I love that it's Anubis, but like, I think, at least the last time we seen him, the person he had talked to had grown up with the stories and believed, and Laura had said, basically, I mean, she didn't say she's an atheist. She just said there's nothing after this. And I feel like she doesn't believe in anything. So, I don't want to say, like, that makes her an atheist, because she could just be like, whatever.
Yeah, I think she's more agnostic, I guess would be the word. But, she's like, I think you just stop breathing and that's it.
And then
that's
you rot.
And then you rot. I think that they used Anubis for her after death, going on to the next thing. Scene is because she worked at the casino that is Egyptian themed. Okay. So, I mean, honestly, you work at a place for 8 years at a very boring job, and, I guess some of it gets absorbed into you.
That makes sense.
I think maybe that's why Anubis comes to her as opposed to someone else, because, I mean, she spent the last 8 years of her life looking at pyramids and statues of Anubis and Horus, and she knows who he is, and she knows, and he kind of shows her the scales. She's like, I'm already going to tell you, I sucked as a human being, and my heart's going to be heavier than that feather. It is not going to weigh. And by the way, I don't want to be here. I'm going back. And he's like, whoa, wait. Like, no one's ever said no to Anubis before in quite such a way. And he's like, okay, yeah, some people say that, but, you're just this little skinny thing, and there's nothing you can do. And right as he's ready to put her into the hot tub to gas her, she gets sucked back to Earth, and he just kind of looks like, what in the hell just happened?
I love that line, because he's like, basically, you're nothing, you're no one, I will never even remember you.
Exactly.
And this was after, like you said, he was going to put her in a hot tub, because if her heart was heavy, she's going to go to, I don't know, a version of hell or nothingness. But she does ask him, will it be peaceful? And it's like, well, you just gave this whole speech, like, basically, you don't care what's happening, and you never cared, and screw everything and everyone, and now you're like, wait, but is it going to be peaceful?
Yeah.
That's kind of weird. Well, but when she gets ripped away, I'm like, oh yeah, Anubis is going to remember this one.
Oh yeah, he's probably gonna, yeah. I would risk to say that perhaps in the television series that Anubis might go after her. I can see him being kind of pissed that this has happened. But I thought that line when she asks, "Is it peaceful?" I thought that it was kind of not like the Laura we know, because she doesn't seem to like peaceful.
Oh, okay. See, I'm thinking it was like scared little girl kind of thing. Like, oh my gosh, I've done all the shit. I've talked big shit, and now it's like, oh crap.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's happening?
So I don't know if it was like, is she having the realization that, oh crap, I've really screwed up. There's something after life and we don't just rot. And somehow, she gets sent back. And we do know that, because of, Mad
Sweeney.
Sweeney's coin, Shadow flips it in there and that's kind of what, brings her back to life, and pulls her from the scene with Anubis back into the life. I think going to hell where lots of things are happening, I think, and not good things. And I think Laura would still find some way to be bored there.
You're probably right. The way they're portraying her right now, I think you're probably absolutely correct with that.
She's like, I'm being tortured again. No.
Well, we go forward. She comes back. But we find out now who saved Shadow from Technical Boy's weird, creepy, faceless men.
The minions.
And all of a sudden, man, she's pulling out some baby doll moves here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, she was totally channeling Sucker Punch.
Oh, yeah, and she totally kicked ass. And, like, they're exploding, and she's pulling the spines out. I was like, wow.
Yeah, and now we understand why that scene that we got a couple of episodes ago was so bloody. Because I'm like, oh, why is it so bloody?
Yeah, I'm like, what's exploding? Everything? Yes.
Yeah.
It was so weird. And then she jumps up and she's like pulls apart the rope that he's hanging on. But she hides herself from him.
Mm-hmm.
With all of that going on, I was wondering why she hid.
I think she's kind of ashamed. I think that she's adjusting because she just died and, she sees Shadow and, I mean, she just ripped apart a bunch of people and then she's kind of like, well, crap, what if he doesn't like me as a killer? I think it was more that and than anything else. And, I mean, she's probably assuming that he knows, the circumstances of her death and we kind of get that confirmed when she goes to visit Audrey. But I think she hid because she was kind of ashamed and unsure how he would respond to her.
Okay. Yes, weirdly, in this fight, her arm ends up sliding off after she's done with the fight. Like, one of the guys hit her just right in the shoulder, and then later it slides off. And she's carrying it down the road. Just over her shoulder.
Like, I broke a nail, we'll fix it later.
Like, she's got her purse just over her shoulder. It's like, no, that's her arm. Okay, and then this was me, watching. She's covered in blood, and it's raining, and there's mud. And I'm like, why has the blood not washed off? I don't know why that was.
I thought that, too.
Yeah, that was just, stuck in my head. I'm like, that's so stupid for that to be the one thing. I'm like, why is that happening?
Yeah. I don't know if she's just otherworldly and the rain doesn't affect her the same way, but I don't know.
Yeah, a stupid thing. I know, cool. People. I know that was stupid to get fixated on, but it happened. But she goes home. She washes off. Like I said, she hid from Shadow when he came to clean the house. And then she ends up heading over to Audrey's house because apparently Audrey's really into arts and crafts. And so she knows there'll at least be thread to sew her arm back on, which was weird, watching her do it with, glittery-looking thread.
Yeah, well, she reminds me of the Sally character from Nightmare Before Christmas, where she's having to kind of sew her arm back on.
Oh, yeah, and just, nonchalant, da-da-da.
Da-da-da-da. These things happen.
Until Audrey sees her.
Oh, Audrey just melted down.
Oh, my. Well, come on. Wouldn't you? You see your friend first. She's dead. She's standing in your craft room. Second, she's sewing her arm on. It's I guess it's better than the hot glue gun. I don't know, but still, I would have probably been screaming and running too and been like, I don't know, looking for the gun, be like, zombie, shoot her in the head.
Yeah, I would probably think that my husband cheating on me and his death and how everything happened, I would be thinking about right then, okay, I've finally cracked. This is it. I'm seeing dead people, you know. And then we get Laura's perspective. She's like, you know, really, we just have to get over our differences, you know, that we had in life because, you know, I'm on a different path now. And you just got to get over it and help me sew my fucking arm back on.
It was like, so weird.
Really?
Yeah, and like you said, all of a sudden she's like, yeah, you're standing in the tub screaming at me, like trying to hide behind a shower curtain.
Yeah.
But I need your toilet. And just sitting there with like the, embalming fluid coming out, as she said, of every hole she has.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to Audrey, like, yeah, I'm sorry. Does everyone know that I was screwing your husband? And I love Audrey. She's like, yeah, I was kind of a bitch. I may have mentioned it a couple times at the funeral service.
And I may have also sewed his dick into his ass.
Yes, because she's like, I'm a petty bitch. And I'm like, holy crap, because when she told, you know, Shadow, I told them to leave it where it was, Shadow looks at his wife, which that would have been really weird at this point if with her coming back.
Yeah.
But thankfully that wasn't happening. But poor Robbie. That's just awkward. I mean, how are you as the mortician and like, oh,
that's a nice request. I wonder if they like get requests like that and honor them.
I don't know. Oh God, that's really weird.
Mortician confessions or something. That would make a good show.
I don't know. Do you want to know that though? It's like
I don't know if I want to know that. I used to watch HBO's 6 Feet Under, which was about the funeral home and the family and everything that happened. And they did a lot of like, you will not believe kind of, you know, the requests we get. But, you know, I wonder, because I got to think that someone has done it before or asked for it. I mean, I might consider asking for it if that were my situation.
You know what? You're probably right. Now it's like, thank you. I have to go to work later today, and that's going to be what's in my head. That'll totally get me on a whole different level at work. People will be asking me weird questions. I'll be like, what would they ask the mortician to do? So that's just going to be in my head. But fast forward, and, you know, Laura's like, I have to find Shadow. Can I use your car? And Audrey's, you know, she's like, what? No, but apparently she's going to drive her. But, I mean, really, are you going to just give your car to a weird zombie that had her arm missing? I mean, you may never see your car again.
Well, I mean, she already destroyed the family's other car. She killed Robbie's car, basically. So at this point, I'd be like, you've already killed one of my cars, so I'll drive you.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. I mean, Audrey cussing up a storm actually made me feel good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm like, that sounds strange, too. But I felt it was, like, really cathartic for her character.
Well, how often do you get to, you know, basically swear at the person responsible for your husband's death who also happened to be cheating on them after they die? I mean, this is
your best friend.
Who was your best friend. Yeah. So this is someone who has betrayed her on so many levels for the last, like, basically 4 years. And that, you know, the circumstances of how they died and everything. I mean, she actually, you know, gets to release all the emotions that she's having, I mean, right then and there. I mean.
Yeah, that's probably something a lot of people wish could have happened. Although, again, kind of strange to have that happen at the same time.
Yeah. I don't know that anyone's had this exact circumstance happen to them, but you never know, maybe.
Okay, if somebody out there has had this exact circumstance, I better get an email.
Yes, and if you requested that your mortician do specialty functions for the body preparation, we would like to know.
Yeah, I kind of do. So fangirlzonepodcast@gmail.com. I think that is something we would share. We would leave you anonymous if you want, but yes, that's kind of weird, and I want to know. Or if you know somebody who works in the business, you can ask and pass that info on to us.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, weird. Okay, so as Audrey decides to, like, take Laura where she's going, all of a sudden they slam on the brakes because we see a dog and a man in the middle of the street. But the dog is instantly changed to Anubis, and then the man, who I thought he said Jackal, but it's Mr. Ibis. Yes. Which may be a translation that I'm not aware of. They're running a a morgue, well, a funeral home.
Right.
And so Anubis just looks at Laura. It's like, I remember you. I'm like, oh shit, what's going to happen?
Yeah.
But they take her, and apparently Audrey's like, okay, you're free to go. She's like, 2 fingers, I'm out. And they go, and her arm is off again. I'm like, why did they take her arm off again?
I don't know if they did it to, excuse me, to like put better threading
That's
through
what
there.
it looked like. But at first I'm like, why are they punishing her now? They're removing her arm more?
Not again. And then you see them painting her, and if you've ever seen the movie Death Becomes Her with Goldie Hawn, and
oh my God, it's so funny you mentioned that. I was thinking of that movie.
it was a total Death Becomes Her moment where, Bruce Willis paints them, and then he ends up, leaving both of them, and they have to make the decision to get along finally because they got to paint each other's ass for all eternity.
Well, yeah,
but yeah,
and he says to her, he's like, you can't fix your body anymore, but we're going to fix it up the best we can.
Right.
So, yeah, she's just like, whatever, and suddenly she's a normal color again, and I feel
And
like
how long does that last?
Right. It's got to be that they know she's falling into this storyline, but because, Mr. Ibis is the one who's been writing the stories that we see at the beginning.
He's the one coming to America and somewhere in America. He is that guy, yes.
And then Anubis obviously is at the end. But, I mean, they've got to know how the story is weaving. But I feel like they are very much apart where they're not going to get involved with the old gods and new gods.
Well, yeah, Anubis would be in the old god regime. So if there is a coming war, he's definitely on the old god side because he's one of the oldest gods. If you think about it.
I just feel like they won't take part in anything. But
yeah, they're more, we'll jump in if we have to, but we're just going to sideline this one.
That's why I think they are helping Laura to put her in Shadow's path to get involved without officially getting involved.
Right.
So I don't know, it's crazy, and then again, the end. We've already seen her.
And Laura is waiting for Shadow at the end, and you're kind of like, well, this is going to be fun.
I was waiting for Shadow to walk in and, pass out.
Yeah, he's seen a lot of things, but I don't think he's quite ready to see this yet, and I'm interested to see if they pick right back up with that portion, or if they, kind of show us other things, and then we get the reveal of Shadow's reaction when he sees Laura. So, yeah.
This should be really interesting where they're going, and we're halfway through the season, which makes me sad.
Yes, but we are getting season 2.
Yes.
So that is a good thing. I want to say, and let me look real quick, that episode 8 has a lot of Emily Browning in it. We get a little more Laura, and we also see her playing an Irish girl who brings over her gods.
Really?
So we get a little more Emily Browning with a whole new character.
Oh, this should be interesting, how we're going to go with that. So I guess we just sit back and wait. And, I don't know, 4 more episodes. It's only a month.
Yeah, I know. And it's definitely more and more people are watching it. And a lot of people that I've found are kind of like, they know I watch a lot of stuff. They know I like a lot of crazy stuff. And they know I like Neil Gaiman. And a lot of my friends have kind of kicked around and, so, what have you been watching lately? And I'm like, so you want to ask me about American Gods, don't you? And they're like, yeah, I caught it the other night, and what's going on with that?
I hope a lot of people are really getting into this and bringing their friends into it, because it is this weird world that it's hard to explain unless you've actually watched some.
You kind of have to see it the way that Shadow has to see things to believe it. So yeah, all the friends that have been kind of, embarrassed that they've been watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, it's fine,
Embarrassed. I'm like, yes, you should watch this.
Yeah, and I'm like, you're awesome. But I mean, it does have a lot of blood and gore, and the sex scenes, like I said, they're reinventing how sex scenes are shot. I mean, they're insanely graphic and realistic looking, and at the same time, being behind the scenes of production in my life, I'm like, how did they get those angles?
Yeah, they're very careful with things too.
Yeah. So I mean, I think they're creating the new gold standard for sex scenes that are non-pornographic. I mean, they're pretty borderline.
Yeah.
But we don't see the ins and outs of those scenes. I guess that's the only thing we don't see. So it's not porn.
That's a good way.
And then I have friends who are like, "Are you watching American Gods?" And they're totally shameless about it, like I am. And I'm like, "Of course I'm watching."
Well, obviously,
I think a lot of people are liking it.
Obviously, if you're listening to us, you're watching it. Otherwise, you're trying to see if you should delve in. And at this point, we're definitely saying jump in.
Jump in
head first.
Yes. Get into that hot tub with your bug spray and go.
All right. Well, we do hope you're enjoying everything. And like we said, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you think it's going. fangirlzonepodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for interacting with us on Twitter, because so many of you guys are, and it's awesome. We love talking with you guys. And, just check out the website, check out everything. Maybe check out the Amazon link to go buy the book, because I have to. Definitely have to buy this book. And we really hope that we are going to get, big reveals. It's I don't know, because I don't have screeners, so I don't know what's coming. I'm right there with you guys, and I kind of don't want to even try to get them, because I want to know as it's happening.
I'm with you, and I'm really kind of glad that we got this episode where we don't really see any of this happen in the book. We just get, random, very, very tiny bits here and there throughout the book where, Laura makes a comment or something like that. But it's very infrequent, and kind of, their life before he went to prison is a little bit of a mystery. But I mean, this episode was perfect, and I love that it's new content in respect to the story, and I love that Neil Gaiman is there consulting and also loving anything new that can be brought into the story as well. So that's always a good thing.
Whenever the writers of the actual, piece are involved, I love it, because we're getting that with Handmaid's Tale too, with Margaret Atwood. So
yes.
You will be hearing from us soon enough on Handmaid's Tale, but this is American Gods, and we're super excited of what's to come. So, we hope you like it. And from the Fangirl Zone on American Gods, Episode 4, I'm Sean Fangirl S.
And I'm Jennifer from Hollow 9.
And until next time.